Whenever you're ready.
You want me to say that?
I do.
From coast to coast and post to post, from the press box to the penalty box, the one, the only, the Ratcast. 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 Ratcast.
This is Charlie Yoder from the Professional Inline Hockey Association, and this is the Ratcast.
You gotta love the outtakes. They do make it. The outtakes make it.
For sure. Look at that. You're the driver's seat this week, Dave. Over there on the left side. I feel like I'm Alice instead of Cindy Brady now, you know. That was the best back in the day, the Brady Bunch. Anyway, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ratcast. This is episode 7 of the 24-25 roller hockey season. I'm Dave Gardner alongside Anthony Flynn. And Flynn, let's take a look what's going on here in show number 7. We're going to have a weekend recap from the Rapid Fire Arena. A weekend recap from the 422 Sportsplex. We got some great guests scheduled to come on, maybe from Pottstown, from let me see, the Naples Chaos, and maybe the Raleigh Mops too, if all goes well here. We'll have another recap from the SGAA, and we'll talk about what's coming up here at Marple Sports Center this weekend, and also some recap some action here on the show. So anyway here. Oh, yeah, so I do have my Dodgers hat, Flynner, okay? But to be fair, if the Yankees were winning, I do have my Yankees hat too, okay? So I had both sides covered here. Boy, you know, you're throwing some shade to a lot of our listeners, probably Yankee fans there on the island.
What? That's not a Yankees hat?
No.
What was that?
No, that's a Phillies hat.
You and I was watching. Speaking of Phillies, I was watching on Netflix. They had the 2004, comeback for the Red Sox. They get the whole. It's a 3-part series on Netflix. And it's kind of interesting. I'm not big on baseball, but being a Boston guy, I did watch that, and it was fun watching that. And it goes back in time, and it talks about some of the players and where they were playing before and how they came to the Red Sox. I didn't realize or forgot that Schilling played with the Phillies. I didn't realize that Kurt Schilling played with the Phillies, and I went back and looked at, and he played with Houston for a year. And
are we allowed to talk about him? I thought he's been canceled.
I don't remember, but it was just kind of, it's like, because he was talking about how he played with Francona in Philadelphia. He's like, wait a second, wait, he was with the Phillies, and he was with the Phillies. He almost grabbed the Phillies, so that's kind of neat.
It's a baseball show now.
It's a baseball show. Well, it's the World Series. We got some craziness going on. I know you were jumping up and down on social media when the guy hit that home run there in Game 1. That was kind of cool, actually.
Well, I am a Mets fan, and so when you're a Mets fan, you're not a Yankees fan, and I'm sure you're wearing that Dodgers hat because you're a Red Sox fan. So that means you're not a Yankee fan, right?
This is the enemy, this is the LA Kings.
Right. Yeah. Their new blue jerseys. All right. Let's talk
one more thing about baseball, get on the hockey. That's something we dream about as a kid, don't we? How many times have we grabbed a wiffle ball bat and it's bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, down by 3, 2 strikes, and you hit the grand slam to win the game? That's something as a kid, that scenario we played out as a kid. And here's this guy doing it in real life. That was pretty cool. It really was.
But what's cooler, doing that or scoring a Game 7 overtime winner in the Stanley Cup?
I don't think anything compares to hockey.
Yeah,
as far as playoffs, even the first round of hockey is so intense.
Well, I remember earlier in the season, we showed some old AIHL highlights, and some of the intros and some of those overtime game winners and stuff. They're the best. I mean, I remember just 2 seasons ago, we had one in the semifinals between the Legends and the Snipers. With an overtime game winner, Daniel Nelson. I think we played that one in there too. So I mean, they live forever.
Pretty much no matter what the sport is, if you score on the last play that ends it and gives you the championship, whether it's a touchdown in football or a field goal or a home run or a single in baseball, a goal in hockey, or I don't know, basketball, they score all the time. I don't know what the equivalent would be. But anytime you score that one and that ends it, it's all done. It's overtime. You win. It's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting,
Well, hopefully that's the way one of all of our leagues end this year in Colorado.
We might have to mark the tape. we might have to mark the tape here. Flynner calling that out. Could we have an overtime championship winner in Colorado this year?
Yeah, it happened in 2017. So we'll see maybe it happens again. All right, we'll mark the tape.
Where do you want to go here first, there, Flynner?
Well, I believe if we get to our weekend review, first event we had was up in Rapid Fire this weekend. 4 semi-pro teams from a couple different divisions meeting for a little action at Rapid Fire. Now,
where is that? For the people at home, where is Rapid Fire Arena?
Rapid Fire is on the floating island of trash known as Long Island. Oh, sorry. That's not really a floating island of trash, people. Just throwing a little shade.
It doesn't float.
Some comment. It is in Moriches, Long Island. So if you're familiar where Skate Safe is, for people who have been there, we had a couple events there already this year. It's about a 45-minute drive east, a little bit more eastish center of Long Island. And Long Island's very long. I lived there for 8 years and never really made it out past Riverhead. And, then after Riverhead, you can go all the way out to Montauk and out in the Hamptons and stuff.
We used to take the ferry from Bridgeport to, oh boy, I forget the name of the city we landed. Port Jefferson?
Port Jefferson, yep.
And then we would go west into Skate Safe is where we would go.
Yeah, and it's a great play for those for people coming up from New England, because you can the traffic when you're going through.
Yeah, you avoid
going
around
Southern Connecticut and getting through. Yeah, it could be really rough. So, so we had a couple of teams get together there, and one thing I do want to point out is we are getting so much great media this year, Dave. We really are.
I've been following that. Yes.
I mean, you just go into our picture page. I think we already have more galleries than we had all of last year, and it's just special thank you to everybody that's contributing. We've got a couple. You got a dad here and a player here, and a couple teams now hiring some people. And I just shoot them a quick message. Hey, can I get that stuff and throw it on the gallery? And it just really helps them. We're throwing articles out, and people can use them in their social media stuff, and it really is great. So, I mean, it's almost every event. We've had somebody shooting pictures, and I carry a camera around with me, and I try to shoot some
but
stuff.
You can't get everywhere,
I can't.
So when you have someone that can do this,
yeah, and I always tend to be doing something else when I'm at these events too. So I mean, I was so busy this weekend that I didn't even get to get too much intro and outro kind of video. I had to slide back to the one I took of league president or league founder Charlie Yoder. It was a busy weekend, but yeah, I just want to shout out
videos and the pictures coming in the whole bit, because that really
shout out to all the people who have been helping do that. Whether it's teams organizing to get it done. I mean, even down in the Southeast this weekend, for the first time, we got some pictures. Easy
nice.
Mac, our buddy Easy Mac made sure that was all set up, so it was great to see pictures down there. We're starting to get some headshots from those guys. And everyone does know I'm the photo Nazi when it comes to those headshots. I try to make sure everyone's got one. So it was great. So yeah, we had a good weekend there, and we had a mix of Metropolitan and Atlantic teams playing out there. Just the 4, because we have 9 teams between those two divisions. So sometimes those weekends have 5 teams involved. Sometimes they have 4, but 3 of them were here from the Metropolitan, the Rebellion, the Impact, and the Blazers. And the other team came from the Atlantic Division, which was the Legends. And the Legends certainly came out looking like the stronger team the weekend. I think the Rebellion had a pretty good weekend as well. But again, all the games there, pretty tight. I always go back to the kind of goal differential, and I say, man, look at some of these teams. Realize that, hey, the Blazers have played 8 games and they're a minus 16. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're in last place. They've they're not having the best season. They've got
that's 2 goals a game. It's not like it's 9-0.
Again, and that says to me that anything can happen in any game on any weekend. The Sting so far, they didn't play this past weekend. They really do look like the class of that division. I think they're very strong, when I look at their team, but obviously they got the Snipers on their heels, and the Rebellion is a very good team. With a lot of talent on there. John Pinero doesn't age. Jesse Petito's on that team. Ryan Foley's got a couple of his guys still from the Rebellion last year, so it's a really good team. And it's going to be interesting to keep watching what happens here. So
how do you guys handle the OT wins? I'm looking here at the OT wins.
So the reason that's a separate column is because we run off a 3-point system, where if you get 3 points if you win in regulation, you get 2 points if you win in overtime or a shootout.
Okay.
1 point for a loss. I tell you, I wish the NHL would go to that, yesterday, because it just makes way more sense. A lot of international play goes by this. I feel like in every game, we do it here at Marple. I installed it up at SkateSafe, and they still use it years ago. I think everyone should do this. I mean, you want to give out the same amount of points in every game, right? The idea that you can win 8-0 in regulation and you get 2 points, but then two teams will play to a 1-1 tie and they go into overtime and 3 points gets given out. That's absurd to me. So that's why we use that 3-point system. And I think the only reason the NHL probably doesn't go to it is because they just, like baseball or like anybody, they're stuck on their history, So, but yeah, that's why. So the overtime loss, the OTW is incorporated. So when you see your wins, for example, we'll look at the Snipers. It says they're 7-2-0-1. Well, the 2 overtimes wins are included in those 7 wins.
Oh,
so it really, what this system could say RW, regulation wins, and then it could say OTW. But so part of those 7 wins are those 2 overtime wins.
So they get 5 wins at 3 points. That gives them 15.
Yep.
Plus the 4 for the other 2 wins is 19, and then they have an overtime loss or tie or something like that. Okay.
Correct. And that's how they get their 20 points. Right.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, that's a great question, and that way people can understand the way the standings are broken down.
Put all this together here. Okay.
Right. So, but theoretically, the Snipers here, if we look at them, are 1 win, regulation win, south of the Sting there.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So we move on.
How do they have? If they get 8 wins, how do they have 23 points? The Sting.
That's a good question.
It should be 24.
We'll have to take a look at that. Maybe there's an error in the system somewhere. Good call. Good catch. And I'm going to write that down. We'll take a look at that.
Okay.
All right. As we go there, we had another event this weekend at 422 Sportsplex. So the difference between the Atlantic and the Metropolitan divisions versus the Keystone division. The Keystone division, we have 5 teams in both the semi-pro and in the minor. So these guys are playing kind of almost the same schedule 3 times this season, right? You play everybody in your division 3 times, and then you play everybody from the other 2 divisions once, and that's how these teams are pretty much getting their schedule. So a lot of the teams in this division are going to see the same event 3 times. And this event this weekend was a replica of the event we had a couple weeks ago at Yellow Breeches, where the same teams are coming. The 5 teams from each division are coming to play again. What was interesting about this event was, after the first one, there seemed to be some clear front runners, right? Wow, look at this. The Propel MG just seemed to dominate the weekend in semi-pro. I mean, the Blizzard had a decent weekend, but then, the team like the Iron Knights, who had a great season last year, just kind of came out sluggish. I think they were a little short. And this weekend, and the same in minor, the 309 Stingrays had, a really tough first weekend. The Iron Knights had a tough first weekend. And then same thing this weekend. All of a sudden, the script flipped this weekend, and it was just awesome to see. So
you think that comes down to who can make the trip sometimes? Because we talked to some people on the show and said, well, so and so couldn't make it, and we had to go with this guy here, and next time
for sure,
so and so. So I mean, you think that does come into play?
Oh, absolutely, it does. I think some of it is that opening weekend. A lot of times, like some teams just have a ton of people that opening weekend, right? And then maybe it fizzles a little bit. And then some of it is exactly like you said. The teams that seem to do a little better this weekend were kind of more home teamish. But to be fair, like that's part of the battle. Like I was just saying this the other day to somebody in the Southeast Division that half the battle is getting them there. Like the hockey is only half of it when you're talking about a travel league. You can play men's league and you're going to have the same guys most every week. But when you're talking about travel, it's completely different. You have to get the guys there. And, maybe you're right. Maybe some, the certain teams did better this weekend because they were, the home teams. But, that's why we bounce it around, right? It's not all at Marple Sports Arena, or it's not all at 422. You have to move around. And, we try to also balance everyone's schedule where you don't have 3 weekends in a row. It's, pretty much once a month. So, yeah. I mean, it was an incredible weekend. Like I said, you take a look here at the semi-pro. After week 1, Propel was they were like a plus 24 or something like that, and they were 4-0, and they barely. I mean, they lost their first 3 games and almost lost the last one. It was incredibly tight this weekend. They were set. Here's a 4-0 team. They were set to play the Iron Knights first game, and you just if FanDuel were there, you were going to be laying a lot of money to get any kind of return on Propel and Pottstown thumped them. So nothing is for granted in this league, and it's very entertaining when you can show up and say, anybody can beat anybody.
Anybody can win.
Anybody can win. So this is a quick look at what the standings look like after the weekend. Now, the Fusion Blizzard and the Gladiators, a couple points up on Propel after the weekend. Pottstown, got a couple W's. Barons struggled a little this weekend. They had a rough go of it, but they were in a lot of games. But they were very short. So they had a couple guys that were here this weekend that weren't here last weekend, and you think to yourself, boy, they are in games and they have great goaltending on the team. If they get it all together, I certainly think they're a better team. Here's a look at what's absolutely the tightest division in the entire league. This is the minor division now in the Keystone division, where again everything seemed to flip. You'll see here. I mean, this is the Susquehanna Scream in last place, who won the entire league 2 seasons ago. And they're 3-5. They're in last place. So this division in particular, we should all keep our eye on. I mean, the 309 Stingrays went 1-3 in the first weekend, and then found a way to go 4-0 this weekend. Like they figured it out. So this is an incredible division. I mean, here you go. The top two teams in this division for the last couple of seasons, the Gladiators and the Scream, at the bottom of the division. So this was one we should really keep an eye on and take a look at.
And they're playing frequently. They're playing 16 games. Is that what it is?
20 games.
Yeah, so there's a long way to go here.
Yeah, everybody for the most part's got 3 more events, and there's a lot of cross division events that haven't happened between the Keystone and the other teams. So these teams will play each other again one more time in November back at Yellow Breeches before they finish the season with 2 cross division events against both the Atlantic and the Metropolitan divisions. But we have somebody here with us from the Pottstown Rinkrad Iron Knights to talk a little bit about the weekend. If there was a host team, I guess it would have been the Iron Knights. So we want to welcome in their general manager and semi-pro player, Matt Burke. Hey, Matt, how are you, bud?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome aboard.
So we've been talking a little bit about this particular division and the event from this past weekend and how everything seemed to be a little different this week from week 1. How was it for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we went from having 6 of our regular players and 3 minor guys playing up in a rough weekend to having most of our team there, and which helped. Then we were able to go out and get a lot of the goals back from that we gave up to Propel in weekend 1. We got back this weekend, which was great. And then I'm sure that there were some teams looking at us going, oh, they're going to be an easy win. And now they have something to think about now because, when we have our roster, we'll be a very good team.
What do you think the big difference was between the 2 weekends?
Player personnel. That's a huge part of this. And that's, you guys were talking a little bit about men's league, it's a lot more consistent. Whereas with this, you could have some teams, I mean, and I can say this as, as our GM, like there's, I think 18 guys on our roster. Like teams will roster 100 people and then bring a completely different team. And that will dictate what happens. Because that was Propel's missing a couple of their big guys. They have them weekend 1 and we're missing some of our big guys. They kill us. And then weekend 2, they're missing some of their big guys and we have all of our guys. And it makes a big difference with who's able to win because of that. There's just, it matters. Like who you have there showing up game in, game out matters a lot. And if you have your big guns, it makes a huge difference in this league as to how many wins you can pull out.
Okay. Do you think, it was Flynn and I were just talking about the 3 points for a W there in a regulation win. Does that push you guys to win this in regulation?
I don't know about right now. I think early in the season, not so much. I think we kind of we want to be smart and make sure that we're getting the points. We're not pushing too hard. I think come weekend 4 and 5, I think there's going to be a much bigger push to get that win in regulation. And you may see some teams be willing to do something like pull a goalie in the last 2 minutes to get that extra point because they need it to make standings where they want to be or get into playoffs, especially with teams potentially missing playoffs this year. There's going to be a much bigger option and those points matter. And so I don't think right now, I think guys are kind of like, it is what it is. Like 1 point's not going to kill us right now. I think weekend 4 and 5, you're going to see a lot more of a push for, hey, this needs to be a regulation win.
Well, the only difference is, though, weeks 1 through 3 for you guys, you're going to be playing teams within your division where giving up that other point matters. Like I wonder if it comes to your mind, like you say to yourself, well, we don't mind giving a point away to so-and-so because we're not chasing them in the standings, but it's an interesting dynamic, right? Because you may want that, you have to have that extra point, but not afraid to give it up. So you start looking at the standings and you say, boy, we can't be in 5th place because Dave, as Matt referenced, we're only taking 4 teams in in each division for the divisional playoffs this year. It was a struggle. We kind of go back and forth every year at the league level of whether or not, we should, because we just came to the conclusion that the regular season really needs to be for something. And, having a 4 or 5 game when you had 6 teams didn't seem right. So we just took all 6. But now that we have these 5-team divisions and asking a team to come in to play a 4 or 5 game and potentially have to play 6 games in one day, we thought, hey, let's just make the regular season worth something. We had this one oddball division that only had 4 teams, so it just seemed to kind of be the right thing to do this year. We'll see how it goes and reevaluate at the end of the year. But Matt's right.
Is there a shootout? Do you guys have a shootout, or if it's a tie, each team gets the 1 point? How does that work?
Matt, you know the answer. I'll certainly step in, but he's interviewing you, not me.
Yeah, I mean I honestly I love this part. Like so right now at the end of regulation it goes to a 5-minute 3-on-3 overtime, and then from there it drops to is it 4 minutes?
It's 4 minutes of 3-on-3.
Okay. Sorry, missed that part. And then it drops to 2-on-2. How long is that period? Is that 3?
3 minutes. Yeah.
3 minutes. Okay. And so it goes to 2-on-2, and then from there it goes to a shootout. So the 2-on-2 is always interesting, and it's like some people don't like that. I think personally it's pretty sweet because it's just different, and I like seeing the game grow to where you have some different takes. And I think that's one that PIHA does that I think is really cool. But then at the end of that, it goes to a shootout, and then the winning team gets their 2 points and loser gets their 1.
Okay, so every game 3 points is handed out. Was kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, every point.
We're going to call it a tie, and 1 point's handed out. There's always a winner. Okay.
Now, Matt, I don't know how long you've been in the league, but Dave, back in the day, it used to go to 1-on-1. And it was,
I remember that.
It was crazy. I mean, I remember the first time our team was involved in it. The 2 guys were like holding each other up at the end, literally, because you're too afraid to change. You can't change. So it was, progressively we did 2 minutes of 1-on-1, and that happened a couple times. Somebody inevitably just went on a shootout. We actually, our Growl team, lost a 1-on-1 in probably the quickest overtime in history because both guys just went like this off the face-off draw. And whoever took the puck on the draw, this was the PIHA in Game 3 of the 2006 finals. And John Pinero, and I'm not sure who the player was on the Fire, they both just tried to take the puck forward, and they came out with it and won in overtime. But anything that lasted any time, like the players were just gassed until teams realized, oh, I'll just get the puck, wait for him to back off, pull the goalie, and it was 2-on-1. And then once that started happening regularly, I think the league said, all right, enough of that. Let's just end it after 2-on-2, because the 1-on-1 seemed like the next progression after the 2-on-2, like, oh, this will be gimmicky and fun. But the rink's just too big for 1-on-1.
Yeah.
It's just too big. A 2-on-2, it can be strategic, right? You're going to try to make find a place to get a 2-on-1 break, but 1-on-1 was just it wasn't fun because it wasn't even fun to watch because if the teams, went for one or two, bursts against each other, then it became like oh my God, I don't have anything left in the tank, but I can't change. And it just slowed down and it kind of got boring. So I think they kind of got rid of that.
I always think that they should put up the guys with the most facial hair in overtime. That's what I always like. Start with those guys there, and they have to play first. If you're clean shaven, you're on the bench. You ain't playing.
Are you just playing to your audience right now?
Come on. So Matt, did you guys have a good time this weekend playing? Is that's what it comes down to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, having games at 422, 422 finally being willing to work with you guys about pricing and stuff like that's been great. Of being able to bring it back and have some home games at 422 is nice because it's closer. I mean, the schedule this year is super easy, so it's like I'm certainly not complaining about it. And it's been for the last, I don't know, the last time I had to go to Long Island for PIHA games, but since then it's been great. But yeah, it's a great time. It's always fun.
Thank the desire to play hockey on Long Island. There's just so many teams up there that they can play each other and get enough games. So thank Long Island. I wish this region was as hot to play hockey as it is. I mean, obviously you see like we got Pittsburgh and but it's great hockey all over the place. So why don't you tell us, Matt, a little bit about how the team formed? How long ago was it? How it formed? Like who helps you? Like that's kind of stuff we got to learn a little bit about the teams here.
Yeah, so back in I honestly don't know how long ago it was at this point. Team Blue formed out of Pottstown. So we there's been a bunch of different travel teams that have come out of Pottstown. Team Blue was the one that had the most like groundwork and had the most teams. And then that was growing, and then it had some guys take over that weren't doing such a good job with it. And then my brother and I stepped into a coaching role with a 16U and an 18U team. So we kind of took the older crew, and then Team Blue eventually folded during COVID, mostly due to we had guys aging out and all that kind of stuff. And then so we ended up just kind of closing the doors on Team Blue, and I thought that was going to be the end of travel hockey inside of Pottstown. But then Raul Batista moved to the area. He worked with the Cougars, worked with a couple of Jersey places. So then he comes in and he's kind of talking with me and seeing like, well, hey, what do we do about getting some roller hockey out of here? So then the two of us, and then Elliot Repsick kind of head off Iron Knights. So we're like the three heads. And then my brother's had a hand in it, but he's kind of stepped back. He's got two kids of his own, and that takes up, so much time. So he stepped back a little bit, but then the three heads of us have been doing it for the most part since I think we started in end of 2020, I think is when we started rough drafting. I think our first event was 2021 Winter Wars. I think we had 6 youth teams there that year. And then we kind of grew from there. And then I think we re-entered PIHA that next season. So I think the 22-23 PIHA season was when we came back to PIHA and then did that. And so that's kind of like the gist of it, of where we've been, where we started. And then, I handle most of the PIHA stuff. And then because Raul was off coaching like all kinds of ice hockey and stuff like that. And then Elliot's he works with the Reading Royals. So he's off doing that stuff. So he's on a roster just in case he can make a weekend, but he's probably not playing this year. And then Raul is doing all kinds of other stuff. So PIHA kind of ends up falling on me. But then the three of us together do our tournaments and all the summer stuff and whatnot. And if we do Ironmans out of 422, like the two of them will help us and stuff like that. So that's kind of the quick, study note version of Iron Knights history. I think this is year 6, 5, whatever it is. I think this is going into season 5. Something like that. So we have some background, like we pulled some Cougar guys too that were younger, like on the youth side of things. But then as far as PIHA stuff goes, it's pretty much all like everybody on our team except for I think 2 guys all plays men's league at 422. So it's mostly just a 422 team.
Right. So last season on your semi-pro team, you guys were, you made it kind of to the last stage before Colorado. You lost 2 really tight games to the Gladiators. I think they were 1-goal games, 2 1-goal games back to back. How does that motivate you for the next year, or your players for the next year? Like, man, we were right there, for getting out of the division. And let me add that, Dave, that the Iron Knights were last year's Organization of the Year. Big props to Matt Burke and his group there. They were a great job last year. So how does that change the outlook in coming to a year when you were like so close?
Yeah, I honestly I feel like there's enough time in between that it kind of off the brain kind of thing. I think looking at it as we brought in Dave Colombo to coach us last year, and he had a huge effect on the team. I think that definitely made a big difference in our team. I think we went into it because it was tough because we knew we lost two of our big guys this year. Bryce Whitman went to play with Propel, and then Stephen Groff left to go play pro. So we're kind of like, okay, we're losing two guys. How are we going to compensate that? And then at the same rate, we were so close, and how do we get better? And so it's kind of one of those things where I think all the guys returning, it's like if we do what we did last year, we have a very good chance of heading to Colorado this year. So I think there is that motivation, but then there's also the adult responsibility side of things where it's like, we understand that sometimes things can't always go the way that we want them to. And I think that's where it's like each season we play, it's like, this has got to be the year because we don't know what we're doing next year. And so you kind of take every game and just hope that it goes well and hope that you end up that team that's in Colorado. But I think it's kind of one of those things where we've gotten better every year. We went from being a team that was like mediocre, got better, and then kind of just started putting some work in and getting some guys that can play with us, and then using that to like, okay, here we are, like we're now, we're close, and yeah, that series against Marple was a great series. Like I would hope that they would say the same thing. Like there wasn't, I mean, obviously it's we're all roller hockey players. We all we'll play against each other, and then we're all being best friends. 2 days later. But at the same rate, like it was a great series, and we were that close. And I think we're going to try and use that this year to kind of motivate us. But at the same rate, I also am like, I don't know. To me personally, I don't know that there's much of a, because when we play Marple, it's a very different team. So it's like you're playing a very different organization anyway. But we were close, and I would love it. Like this would be a great year to kind of put that feather in our cap. But we were Organization of the Year last year, aiming to repeat as that this year, but who knows? And then put that, hey, we have a championship. Let's hang that banner inside of our rink kind of season. But it's a tough league, and there's some very good players, very good teams in this league. So I would definitely say we're striving for it. But I don't know how much the motivation from last year dictates too much. But I would say it has some level of influence for sure.
Okay, well, Matt, last thing I'm going to hit you with, because we were talking about semi-pro, is I mentioned about how tight the minor division is. What's the feeling from your minor group? I mean, obviously that group seems to have been kind of a little bit more steady. I'm sure you picked some guys up like everybody did, but that same kind of same goaltending tandem. A lot of the same guys were a couple of years, and this year, man, it really just seems to be so tight in that division. What's the feeling there with that team?
I think they're looking at it going, if they can be consistent and if they can figure some things out, if they can play like a team, they're going to do some good things in that division. I think there's a lot of talent on that team. It's a younger team, so they got some guys that really need to figure out how to play roller hockey, which is always the fun part with the young kids, is teaching them, hey, you can't just, this isn't a one-man show. This is a team game. If you're going to win, especially at this level, this isn't men's league, you need to take those steps and play a team game. I think they're positive about the team. I mean, about the year. I mean, I know that the games they've lost have been very close, and I know that I think they had two. I don't remember if it was this weekend or I think it may have been one this weekend, one the last set of games, and one the first set of games, where they had two overtime losses that were lost because of a bad decision by one person. So it's like that stuff happens, and I think that they're using that to grow, and I think that they feel pretty positive about this division, that they can come out of that division and playing with that group. And a lot of that group plays together over at Skateaway and Reading, and so they kind of know each other and have some familiarity with one another, which is huge. Because if you guys
do they still have the death rail up there?
I don't know. I've actually personally never been there, so it's just connections and pieces that I have. So I know they still play there, but I've personally never been there, so I can't speak to that part. You have to ask Jester, because he'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that one later, Dave. That's an old PIHA reference when we used to play up at that barn. They had this rail. This was like an old roller skating rink, and I guess they had like a rail on the cinder block wall for the roller skaters to hold on to. And man, every once in a while, as a hockey player, you get bumped into that thing. Oh man, that was a killer. We affectionately called it the death rail. So,
Matt, I got to say one last thing before you go. I think you're the first guest to come on the show that doesn't have a piano, right, Flynner? All of our guests have piano.
Well, hey, special thanks. I reached out to him because I had someone else lined up.
Oh, he does have a piano.
And they backed out. So I kind of reached out to Matt real quick, and I said, "Oh, let me get Matt on here." I wanted somebody from this division. I reached out to him last night, and I saw him respond this morning, and I was like, "Oh, he got back to me. That'd be great." So, but he said he had to kind of carve out a little time out of work. It's probably why he's in his car. So we don't want to get him fired, Dave. We got to let him get back to his job here.
I'm just saying, he's the first guy that doesn't have that nice living room with the piano behind him.
Well, I thought we shipped everybody there, all expenses paid, to that particular location every week.
Studio P.
That's right. Well, Matt, thanks so much, man, and continued good luck to you guys. I know you're back at it in a couple of weeks, back at Yellow Breeches. So good luck to you guys, and appreciate all you do. Our reigning organization of the year, Iron Knights. So thanks so much.
All right. Matt, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, that's Matt Burke from the we got a little thing there from the Pottstown Rink Rat Iron Knights. They had themselves a decent weekend this year, and we got ourselves a little behind schedule here. So I want to kind of move it along a little bit. Our next event we had this past weekend was the second event down in the new Southeast Division. This one was in Atlanta, Dave, down at SGAA, it's South Gwinnett Inline Hockey. Okay. Another township kind of coordinated place, I think. But this time, all 5 organizations were headed down there. As you recall, the last time we kind of cut the Asheville Aces out of the games in Nashville because they were just still dealing with the aftermath of the storm. So we got them down there. They played just 4 games this weekend, the teams, except for Asheville. Asheville needs to make some games up, so we added a couple extra games for them. So those guys, they were crazy. They played 6 games all in one day, but survived it. Did pretty well. Went 4-1. And again, like I had mentioned earlier, we've got media coming in from everywhere now, which is awesome. Yeah. And you remember back in, when the league started, like, you couldn't even get a good picture unless you really found somebody. To find somebody that could get like a good crisp picture, we would take pictures with cameras and stuff, and you just get that blurry image. Mm-hmm. Now it's just the technology. You could do it right on your phone. Really, you could probably take a sport picture from your phone. It's how good they are now. So, but yeah, lots of good stuff going on down there. Games were again very competitive down in that division. We do have Gannon Carmeyer and Jared Holst coming on here from the Mops here in just a second to talk a bit about the action from this past weekend down in Atlanta. I thought I threw a slide in here with their standings. I guess I didn't. I failed. I need a producer, Dave. We need a producer.
How did the Atlanta Falcons do? Did they do all right?
Easy Mac and his group there, they had a similar weekend to the first weekend, a little bit better. I spoke with him, as I do 4 times a day now. But he's still pretty optimistic down there. But the class of the division right now in both the semi-pro and in the minor really does seem so far to be the Mops. And I've got 2 guests, not 1. We got 2 this time, Dave, working overtime. Both from the Mops. And
we got a double thick shake from the Shake Shack.
Yeah. So we're going to bring on Gannon and Jared from the Mops. We talk a little bit about the weekend, talk a little bit about the program there in Raleigh, and what they've seen so far this season. So let's bring these guys on here. I haven't done 2 guys on the show once, so I got to find the right connector. There we go.
Almost up to 5 guys.
But you wanted to go to Shake Shack. All right, Gannon and Jared, thanks so much for jumping on with us, buddy. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Well, they get the same background. They're probably sitting right next to each other with 2 different cameras. Is that true?
We're not.
I promise you we are not. I think we're in 2 different parts of Raleigh, Durham area today, taking this call.
Good deal. Well, guys, another weekend in the books here for you guys. Second road trip for the group, right? You've been the crew that's taken road trips both times, along with Jacksonville, because we're not playing any games down there this year. So, how'd the trip go? Obviously, you guys are doing pretty well. Tell us a little bit about the season so far. That was a nod to you, Jared.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I'll take it. No, season's been good. SGAA, a rink that we're super familiar with, just growing up in North Carolina and going down there for random tournaments and qualifiers. But yeah, like you said, our season has kicked off the way that we wanted it to, for being a team that doesn't have a lot of familiarity within PIHA so far. I think on our semi-pro team, we maybe only have 2 or 3 guys, including myself, that have done and played in PIHA before.
Right,
So
I did notice that. So
division-
you played with the Texas team a couple seasons back, correct?
Yep. So I did the commute from Raleigh to Colorado like 4 times to play 10 games in a weekend, and we made it work, working with Chris Treft and those guys out there. So I have a little bit of background in the division, but it's been cool to be back, and just good to be playing some more consistent hockey.
And I know you made it here to Marple for the finals because I had his picture in the system. So that's how I know who was here.
If you want to call it that, we made it there. Yeah, our team wasn't the greatest of showings from our side. But,
it's interesting you bring that up because I remember the Tidal Wave had a really good season that year, and everybody kind of eyeballed that and said, "Oh man, the local teams here were kind of the semi-pro teams. Like, oh, we gotta keep an eye on that team." We kind of knew that the Colorado team that was coming out, they kind of already said, "Hey, we're going to be short." So everyone was kind of looking past them and had their target set on this Texas team because it looked like you had such a great season, and it was clear at that point that there was such a separation. If anybody, I think we have a little feedback here. If anybody, make sure that you don't have the sound playing at the same time. But yeah, I think that gap has closed now, and particularly with your division. And it was something we saw last year. We had our little minor division last year down in Atlanta. But especially watching your games this year, and knowing some of the teams that come in, the Mops, obviously the Citrus Kings, we just assumed, not assuming, we are hoping that gap now is going to close, and that your teams are certainly a little bit more comparable to the teams that were playing in these other divisions.
Yeah, I think it was almost we didn't know what to expect coming out of Texas, or I guess Colorado at that point, when we played, and we were playing the same 4 or 5 teams all the time, and you get so used to that, and then you're playing a totally different style of hockey when you went up north for nationals. So I think one thing that Gannon and I have talked about, weighing on some of our guys' experience, is just preparing ourselves for what could be to come. You don't want to look too far ahead, obviously, but we want to be sure that our guys are, playing the right way. We're not getting ahead of ourselves, and just trying to play the way that we've played together as a team in doing tournaments, but also being willing to adapt on the fly. And who knows what's going to come at us moving forward. We just want to keep putting good tournaments together, and we'll see what happens from there.
What are some of the differences you've seen playing in different parts of the country?
I think Jared's probably traveled a little bit more than I have recently, so he'd be a better answer for that again.
Yeah, the structure of the game itself is all very similar. I think there's a little bit more physicality as you go to different areas of the country. I think there's more of an emphasis on your speed game, unless you're dropping a zone or things like that. But what we've noticed over time is, we're playing in tournaments, and then you go to the big national tournaments, or you're going to PIHA nationals, and the game is just a little bit different. The structure is really there. There's teams that are just super ready in the way that they go about their day and the way that they go about how they play the game. And that's something that we've had to adjust to over time, being from the Southeast. And it's a little bit of a different style here than what I would say we see in other parts of the country.
Yeah, and that's something that Chris Roach, obviously, who's connected, he's kind of echoed back to me that it's definitely a different game. But he did mention that the first weekend seemed very open hockey-ish, and this past weekend seemed to be a lot more physical, and teams got to know each other a little bit more, and seem to be battling a little bit more, right?
Yeah, I think when we were up in Nashville, that rink also is much larger than Snellville. So working on a smaller surface, I think it kind of enables both teams to play a little bit more physical, especially if a team might be slower or faster. That slower team might have to step up and play a little bit more body in the games. I enjoy that a lot myself. I like the speed game as well, but I kind of enjoy a little bit more of a brute force game from time to time.
Gannon, talk a little bit about the travel when it comes to getting players to get out on the road. Does that get easier or more difficult as the season goes on to get people to do some traveling?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So on our team, we were pretty strategic with it. Jared and I both have played quite a bit in other areas. So we knew people in certain areas that would be willing to travel to one or two away tournaments as well as play a home one. We have a couple guys out of Nashville on our team. We've got Whitey, who's been a great asset for us. We kind of took a partnership on with the Tidy Whiteys, which has been really, really good. So initially we were thinking it would be pretty difficult to get some of our Raleigh guys to travel a little bit more, but thankfully, it's kind of been the other way around. With the two Atlanta tournaments, that's a good 5.5, 6 hour drive for our guys, so it's not bad at all. Our minor team did struggle with that going into the Nashville weekend. I know Kobe, who's not on here today, who kind of runs point for that team. He had to kind of strategize with who he had told that they could play and pick up some guys that were more willing to travel. So for them, it was much more difficult. Their entire team is Raleigh based, except for one guy out of the Myrtle Beach area. So I think I have an optimistic outlook on it moving forward to be able to get everyone to actually show up to their weekends. And then we do also have a couple guys out of the Atlanta area too that I've had a few phone calls with Easy Mac about that he may or may not have wanted them on his team, but excuse me. Yeah, so hopefully, we're able to, Jared and I are able to stay organized and keep, the right players going to the right events and get everyone their 10 games as well.
Do you think winning games makes it easier for guys to travel? And then if you're not doing so well, maybe some guys I don't feel like taking that ride this weekend.
I think to a degree it definitely could have an impact. Fortunately for us, we're not in that predicament right now. Next season it could be completely different, or even later on this season. I think if we were, 2-8 rather than 8-1, it may hinder some guys to be willing to go back. Especially if we had a second Nashville weekend, I think we would face a little bit of complication there. But fortunately, it's not something that we currently have to deal with.
Well, and that was all part of the pre-planning, Dave, was to not put that Nashville event later in the season because it creates so many potential obstacles. And the one out here, and we're still not through with it because the next event, I think it's a minor event, is kind of loading up at the same time as when National Cup kind of rescheduled themselves. So we're kind of looking at that like, boy, we dodged the bullet, but did we? So is it going to affect us that they got they were the thick of it. The hurricane rolled through on the weekend They picked, and we were the following weekend. We're like, oh wow, we got away with that, and all we had to do was reschedule a little bit for Dan Dean's group there in Asheville. But then there's only so many weekends, and these guys wanted to reschedule. So now we have to still bob and weave a little bit around that. But I mean, for you guys, the Mops, I mean, you've had both travel weekends. You're sitting pretty, and now you're facing a home event coming up next, right? So you're certainly in the driver's seat at this point. I think in the minor division, it looks like Asheville's kind of right there with you. But, again, we look at the standings, and if I had a producer, I would have those to pull up, Dave. But, again, even the Phantoms in last place, every single time they play the Mops, they're in a tight game with them, and that's supposed to be the last and the first place team, right? I think Gannon said to me on the phone yesterday, the team they have the hardest time with is the Phantoms / Falcons.
Yeah, and Easy Mac always likes to remind me of that as well. He's someone that we've played against a lot in the last few years, whether it be via the Mops name or the Tidy Whiteys.
Dave's a Tidy Whitey.
Oh, there you go. See, nice to represent. I wish I had that hat on today too. Just a little nod for Whitey. He probably would have liked seeing that. But I think we've only ever had really one blowout game against them in the past 3 or 4 years. So, and they were also the only team to score on us this weekend, and they actually scored in every period. So our goalie wasn't the most thrilled about that. I think he was really looking for a 3 shutout weekend, and we couldn't secure that for him. But
he sounds high maintenance.
Yeah, he is. They are a tough team for us to play against. It's a lot of fun.
Well, the Phantoms here in the semi-pro, they played 10 games and the differential is -20. So that means the games are within a couple of goals. Factor in an empty netter here or there, and it's again, we talk about it, they're not getting crushed.
And that's 1-2 decisions maybe in a game that could get kind of fixed up. So and in the minor situations, the same thing. So again, I'm not concerned. You look at the overall score weekends. Sometimes you look and it's 8-1 and 7-2. That's not what these lines look like every week. It's 4-2, 3-1, overtime game.
Occasional 8-1 game. We've noticed, but they're not the norm.
Yeah, no. And even though the Phantoms, have given us a run for our money a few times, it's not to discredit the Citrus Kings or the Blades. The Blades, I think we've played them 3 times now. We lost to them once, beat them by 1 goal another time, just happened to have a really good game against them this weekend. And then every game we've had against the Citrus Kings, all 4 but 1 were 2 or 3 goal games. So every now and then we are fortunate to have a really good game against whatever team it may be, and we may score a few more, but for the most part, all the games are very close.
Yeah, there's a lot of overtime games too, it looks like. So bonus time is needed between a lot of these teams.
Yeah, definitely.
How did you guys make out with the weather down there, and how's it going now?
Oh, I'll let Jared take that one.
From where we are, more in central North Carolina, things are good. Just a good bit of rain and some wind. Gannon touched on it. Obviously, we feel for the communities of Boone and Nashville and all the surrounding areas. But that first weekend in Nashville, we did have some guys that had to alter their path to get to Nashville via car going up through Virginia and then coming back down. But we made out pretty well. No real issues here, and a lot of family and friends out in the mountain areas. They're recovering well, and obviously want to keep them in our thoughts and prayers here moving forward. But trying to get back to what their new normal is going to look like here moving forward.
And hopefully playing hockey will contribute to that, getting back to normal for them.
So coming up, 100%. We've got two events up there at the Apex Arena there. That's at the XL Sports World. And one, we're having 4 teams November 23rd, I believe, right? Just the four minor teams minus the Citrus Kings are going to meet there. And then in December, the semi-pro teams will be joining there, along with Asheville and I believe the Citrus Kings will be coming up for that weekend as well. So they got 2 back-to-back weekends. It's really only one event there per team minus Asheville, because this is where they're making up the remainder of the games from Nashville. But tell us a little bit about the rink there. And now the responsibility, Gannon, lies on your shoulders, kind of to be the host guy. So, what should we expect at that events?
Yeah, of course, we one of the reasons we split up the weekends is rink time. Fortunately, I do run the rink there as well, so I have a little bit of an in. But the availability is pretty narrow. So, working with Flynner and Mike Pradella for the Citrus Kings, we were able to get them up with 1 trip, which is the main reason why we split up those semi-pro or the minor weekend. But no, I mean, I'm super excited for it. It is a 1-sheet facility. There are 2 indoor soccer fields there as well. I think every hockey player in the building would argue for the second field to go back to a hockey rink. It is growing tremendously. I think as we talk to the people in the leagues, as I talk to them, a lot of them ask like, hey, are there ever tournaments we can come watch, stuff like that. So I think we'll actually have a good bit of fans there as well, just to kind of hang out, watch, see what some competitive hockey looks like. There's some things that I think Jared and I are going to try and do for all the programs, just as a little Easter egg, but we'll keep those to ourselves for now, just to let it be a surprise when they all get here. But overall, we've got 2 refs. I know, well, 2 of the refs, both ref and the Fed. So they're both very seasoned, very, very talented, very good at their jobs. So super excited for them to come to that. They're both local to the Raleigh area. The second weekend, one of them will be there. And then we'll have a couple more coming in from out of town as well. So, I saw those colors changing on everybody. But I think overall the event will be, I hope it runs smoothly, especially since we're the host. And we're excited for it, especially, I know Jared will be out of town for the minor weekend, so he won't get to partake in those. But I'm excited to kind of see some tournament hockey at the home rink again. It's been a while.
Is that something you see when you get on the road? Is different rinks that host these events, they might do something a little different, something nice for the visiting team to come in?
I know. So Jared and I actually hosted our own little tournament back on Easter weekend earlier this year, and they did things a lot of the for the referees, for some of the teams, supplying waters, Gatorade, stuff like that is always kind of nice. I don't think it's expected by any means from a tournament, but we would kind of like to bring some of that home field aspect like we did for our, Mops Cup that we had, being predominantly local guys, to the PIHA weekends as well. Overall, I don't see a whole lot of differences when it comes to like Narch versus Tours, things like that, other than perhaps the skill level and the amount of teams at some versus the others. But so we'll see what we can do with it.
Okay.
All right. Well, Dave, my last guest he's on a time frame, so let's kind of say goodbye to these guys. We're going to kick them to the curb. But I want to thank you guys for coming on. Gannon, obviously you've done so much for the division. We could talk about that another time when we talk more about this division. He's really kind of been a rock here for everybody. Jared, great to see an old face come back, and congrats on your early success and continued success. Maybe we see you guys in Colorado, because there's rumors that Dave might be coming to Colorado. I don't know. We'll see.
There are rumors. There's all kinds of rumors there.
So, guys, thanks so much for coming on, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys.
That's Jared. That's Jared Holst, Gannon Carmeyer of the Raleigh Tidal Wave Mops. Having a good season so far. We're going to kind of do a little lead in here, but I know Vinny needs to go. So we're going to bring him right into the show if we can. This is from the Naples Chaos, playing this weekend. Vinny Chaos, as he's writing himself. Vinny Cafone, how are you, buddy?
Good. How's it going, guys?
Good, man.
Thanks for coming on.
Bro.
So, Dave, Vinny contacted us after the schedule was all put together, and I guess word was starting to spread down there in the Southeast, thanks to guys like we just had on a second ago when we built the division, and they contacted us and said, "Boy, hey, we think we have a pro team. We're willing to travel. Can we get written into the schedule here?" So, we made it work. I got on the phone with CJ. He and I kind of worked it out. We built a schedule. These guys are playing a little here against the East, playing a little bit against the West. Technically, they're going to be in the Western Conference, but they're going to start out this weekend. They're making the trip up here to Philly. And we're super excited about this event here as we have the big event here at Marble this weekend, where we have all 6 teams coming in, including the new Michigan Fury. Both the Gladiators and Few kick off their seasons this week, and then plus Vinny's got his group coming in, the Chaos. So, Vin, tell us how this all came together.
Well, we just started playing I don't know. Obviously, a lot of us all currently play, and there's a handful of us who play adults every summer, and it actually started with the kids team. So we took my son's team 3 years ago and just made one 8 and under team. and we decided to go to tours with it, and they all loved it. So then the following year, we had a big following down at the Naples rink, and we were able to get 8s, 10s, and 12s to tours. And then I think we played against you in the adult division. And
Well, we don't talk about that because it didn't go as well. It doesn't go as well as when we played against Easy Mac. So I don't remember those games.
So we ended up, it's just kind of built the Chaos program right out of the Naples rink here, and we were able to, I know a lot of people from when I was younger and playing, and able to connect kids, and the program really grew. So now we have 6U, 2 to 3 8Us, 2 10Us, 2 12Us, 14U, and then adults all the way up to kind of make a run at a pro division finally. So it's been 3 years, and we went from one team to 12 or 13. I think I had 13 teams at tours last year, and just trying to keep growing it down here. And the guy at the rink, Todd Burgle, his son is Lucas, is a up and comer young kid who made the U.S. development team, and he's going to be playing with us, and he's helping coach some of these kids divisions. And Todd's been really helpful helping us out with rink time and getting everything situated down here.
So where do you guys play out of down there?
We played Naples and Fort Myers. So there's an outdoor rink in Naples it's covered, and it's got tile. And then we play at the Fort Myers Stadium, where College Nationals has been a couple times. And the rinks are only 40 minutes apart, so we can play at either. But we play tournaments at Fort Myers and Rec League in Naples.
Now, Dave, we're talking about
going to be a pro team only, Flynner?
Yeah, this is going to be a pro team only. And let's talk a second about for now. Yeah. And then that's the hope. We, when we started this division, we kind of said, hey, it'd be great if maybe Jacksonville kind of sectioned off next year and played in a separate division, because we know there's so much hockey in Florida. Mm-hmm. If we could find a couple teams to kind of join up, maybe Vinny gets a full program together like the rest have, and they can compete and we can help build another division. But that's for another time, perhaps. But so, Vin, let's talk a bit about what you guys have undertaken this season. You're going to take a trip to Philly, a couple trips to Colorado, and then if you make it, obviously you have to make another trip for the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so how do you go about finding the guys that are willing to do this?
Well, it's pretty easy when you can backbone your team with Kraft, because he runs the rink. He actually runs the stadium rink that we play at. So starting a team with him, and out of our 10, 11 players, 7 of them actually live in Florida now. So we do play. Normally we play against each other all the time at events down here, just to make it more competitive. But we always kind of bullshit around with each other about it'd be cool if we could play together, because in the summer...
We'll fix that one in post, Dave.
Everybody is always playing against each other at the regionals. But, and then in the summer, they obviously go out and play on their own pro teams or AA teams. So we have guys that played pro last year. We have guys who played AAA. We have guys who played AA. So it's kind of a good mix. And it's just, the 7 of us figured, all right, let's see who we can get. We had Chavo out here for a couple clinics, and we've obviously all known him a while. We invited him, and the dates just worked out for him with his busy schedule that he can make all the events. So having Kraft and Chavo, it's not hard to draw in 1 or 2 other guys if you need them. So
yeah, certainly names that we know well here. I'm not sure.
I'm sure some people aren't going to be happy that they're not on the teams from up there.
Well, they don't live. They're not in that area anymore. So it's actually probably more the right thing that they're playing where they're playing. So I know, Dave. I know you remember Chavo from his days back in the AIHL. I'm not sure if John's played in quite some time since he's kind of been running around with the ice hockey stuff, down in Huntsville and everywhere else he was. But I think he's up in, I want to say he's like Minnesota or something now. But Crafty obviously has landed down there, and him and Kyla. New parents. I think I saw her name on the roster too, right? You watch out for her, yeah. Dave. She's a player.
Her too.
She's a player. So, team's excited. How are you going to travel this weekend? Team going to be pretty.
Everyone's flying in Friday night, and then we'll stay in a hotel by the rink, and then everyone is jetting back Sunday night so they can get back to work on Monday. So it was fortunate enough with the flights from Fort Lauderdale and Fort Myers that no one even has to miss work because there's a night flight Friday night. And there's with the schedule you guys put out, we can actually fly home on Sunday night on a 6 p.m. flight. So
fantastic.
Just a quick trip in and out.
A lot of hockey for them this weekend. They're playing 8 games, Dave.
Yeah. It's going to be a tough test, but it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, let me ask you something. When you're down outside playing in the outside rink, you ever have an alligator go on the court?
No, it's covered.
Well, you see the golf down there and see the alligators running on the greens and the guys putting around the alligators. I didn't know, like, what would you do, though? If an alligator went on the, like, could you just stop the game, or would you play around him and not go to that side?
Probably just toe drag him. He'd probably just toe drag him.
Keep playing. The alligators don't come after people down here.
Would you go flying by him and say, see you later?
No, might fish them and eat them for dinner.
Sorry.
That was a poor joke, Dave.
Yeah.
Dave's not even serious. He's not the serious guy. I'm the serious guy here. So, listen,
is that this weekend, or and the next? What weekend's that coming up?
That's this weekend. We're starting here Saturday.
You're in action this weekend.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring him in, because this is really, for us on the East Coast, this is the one event, and it's why it was so great to have them come in this weekend, was because this is the one event every one of our teams is meeting. Because of the travel we have out here with Michigan and Long Island and stuff, there's no way to send them all to one place. So this is the one time all year that everyone's coming in. So not only this is their one event on the East Coast, but they're actually going to get a taste of every single team in our division. And then they get to go to Colorado, and they'll play all the teams out there. So they're going to really be in a unique situation.
And that's the only team doing that, right? Is that the
only team doing that? Now, and the funny thing, we were talking to a couple West Coast teams about maybe coming out here to do it. And then, like, as we were kind of building the schedule, like, Vinny kind of popped out of nowhere and said, hey, looking to play. So, it was great that that's happening. We obviously add another strong team. Maybe we see them at the finals. Who knows? But a couple of ex-Sting guys there probably going to have a little bit extra when they play the Sting, a little extra motivation. So,
I think we have them right out of the gate.
Maybe that was not by accident. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know.
Shocking.
But we're certainly excited to see that. And we're going to have our friends at Puck Pro Media there again this weekend, Dave. So we'll have lots of action from this. Certainly, I know there's definitely a buzz about this particular event all year long, being that all the pro teams will be here. It sounds like, I talked to Mike Farinelli. Sounds like they're traveling really well this weekend, the Michigan group. So it should really be great. So, and Vinny, thank you so much for putting it together. We're really looking forward to seeing you this weekend. And I know you said you had to run, so I'm going to let you cut out, because he said he had somewhere to be. But I appreciate you I know we were running a little late. Appreciate you hanging in with us. And we'll see you in a couple days. And we look forward to seeing what the chaos is all about.
All right. We'll see you when we get there.
All right. All right. That's Vinny Cafone from Naples Chaos. I know he had to kind of jettison there, Dave. But yeah, that's the big thing going on here this weekend. I think it's the only event we have here on the East Coast this week. We actually even have we have a referee coming down from Long Island for this one. We wanted to make sure we're putting our best foot forward for the league. But all 6 East Coast teams, plus these guys who are technically they're playing in the West Coast division, but the way they're traveling, they could have gone either way.
Right.
But since they were playing more games against them in the regular season, we decided to, put them over in the West Coast division, because they'll head out to Colorado Springs twice later in the year. I think they're going out December and January, I believe, to play a couple of events out there. So they'll even see those teams out there, and they'll have
maybe with hopes at some point of having a Southern Division of Pro at some point, right?
For sure, yeah. Well, and that's where we knew when and I hated to rush Gannon and crew off as quick as he did, because that was the next logical place to discuss what was going on. But now that division is there, and we know that there's we've been fielding calls from Florida ever since we started the division. The hope is we start a division there. Maybe the Chaos get involved in that. And now we're not pulling from the South. Maybe we could even do something in like a Richmond or something, and we can get some of the teams from the Northeast, maybe even if it's just the Keystone Division to get down. Because the one thing you don't want to do is just keep playing the same 5-6 teams year in and year out. So I mean, we already, I think Gannon had mentioned somebody that was on their team from Myrtle Beach. Well, I've already fielded a phone call or an inquiry from Myrtle Beach, said, "Hey, we have an outdoor rink. We think we could put a team together. So we're looking at possibly a couple of teams in Florida. Maybe Richmond can throw something back together, and we can kind of gap between Raleigh and Philly and send some teams down there again. So we'll have to make a call to."
Why am I not surprised that you've been contacting Myrtle Beach and Pebble Beach and Augusta to try to bring in teams into the league? I mean, what do they all have in common?
If we could, I need a team at Scottsdale,
I'm thinking
not the Inferno. Boy, my golf game has been in terrible shape, but I almost hit a hole in one yesterday. It was
I hit one right through the windmill the other week and went right in the hole.
There you go.
So anyway, all right. So that's what's coming up this weekend. Should be a fun one there at the Marples Sports Arena.
We'll try. Those games will be on Live Barn for everyone who has Live Barn. I'm going to try to. I had asked them to tape 1 or 2 games in their entirety. We're going to kind of highlight 1 or 2, and we'll try to get those out nice and clean. Maybe up on the YouTube channel or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to remind everybody that we do have our friends from Puck Pro Media coming again this weekend, and you can hit them on their social media because they'll drop some stuff there in addition to send it to us, and we'll get it out there. They were great the last time, and looking forward to having them again. They're going to handle all the video this week. In addition, Suffolk's Photography, who did a ton of stuff for us last year, they're coming back for their first event with us this year. So, their pictures are just second to none. Ed Hartman there at Suffolk's Photography has done such a great job with us last year, and he's back again this year. He's going to do some stuff. So, just wanted to kind of throw that out, let everyone know we should have lots more media from the weekend. But this is going to be a great one as far as where the pro is, because this is the one, like I said, I've said this a couple of times, but it's the one time all year all the teams will come in, and you'll really have a litmus test for who's what. And it's very kind of middle for everybody. So, I would suspect that teams will travel well, and it should be a good one for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be following along myself this weekend on some of the scores and see how it goes. See how the other Naples team does too with that travel. So.
Yeah, some of the travels these teams are doing, in particular this year, is truly incredible. Because another thing I forgot to mention is out west, the Des Moines Leaf Ray. I tried to get them on the show. It just didn't work today, but maybe we'll get them next week or something. We could talk about them. They're making their first trip out to Colorado Springs this weekend, where they play their first big set of games in the semi and the minor division out there. So lots of travel this year. I mean, here you got a team taking flights to get here. You got Michigan coming all the way out. We see the travel and the hours that Gannon was talking about that they have to travel to get to Atlanta. We got teams up in Phoenix driving all the way up later in the season to play in Colorado. So there's a lot of big commitment here, and we just love to see way more of the country starting to kind of get involved, and it makes it so much more.
But that's the only way to make it work, like you said, because you don't want to be playing the same 2 or 3 teams all year long. You want to play some different teams, and NHL travels, and every league travels, and so to make that happen, you do have to travel. I know it's we're not a professional league like the NHL, but traveling around and playing different teams, hopefully that's enough of an incentive for people to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously we got the finals at the end of the year. That'll be the big hoorah. But this is the meat of the schedule we're in right now, right in the middle. Where teams are going to position themselves and get themselves in a position to make a run later in the playoffs. So it's just it's great to see the enthusiasm all across the league right now. So.
Mm-hmm. All righty, so that should wrap up an extended version here of episode 7. We had a little bit of makeup from last week. We had a cornflake last week.
We did, but there is that hidden episode out there. You have to go to Ratcast Plus for that one. Gotta get you everyone to sign up for Ratcast Plus to catch those episodes. No, sorry about last week, everybody. Dave's a very busy guy, and he had some random games along the way, which we may bump into again, right, Dave?
Next week, I got some games next week too. It's a busy. The meat of my schedule is coming up. Then it thins out in December. So,
gotcha. All right. Well, we'll keep everyone apprised to schedule changes, and maybe we can tape early or something like that.
Well, maybe we might do a night one at some point too. We could do a after work show.
Well, it's just great because we did that a couple weeks ago, and it allows for some different people that just can't do interviews at noon on a weekday. So maybe
we just got to be careful not to go up against Game 7 of the World Series.
Wait, we're gonna start and end with baseball, huh?
Showing matter.
All right. Well, I just want to shout out to everybody. We didn't get to any of the social media this week. Maybe we'll hop back on that in a week or two. But we didn't talk about your jersey there. What are you wearing there?
I am wearing the Boston Swamp Rats from the PIHA from 2006 and 2007 season.
I think they won the league in 2000.
There's the Rink Rat logo here, the defunct Holbrook Sports Center. And
I think they were the champions in 2007.
All the way that year, yeah,
all the way. So, all right. Well, Dave, another episode in the books, as they say, right? So we'll catch everybody again possibly next week.
Yeah, thanks for coming by, and hopefully we'll see you guys next week for episode Ocho.
The Ocho.